Hey guys, in this video we're going to cover customizing your V1 and tweaking it so you really dial down the false alerts and really quiet the thing down. At the same time, we're also going to be covering how to maximize its performance. Out of the box, the V1 is actually pretty chatty. You'll get quite a few false alerts and it's pretty noisy. In fact, one of the main complaints about the V1 is that it's just way too many false alerts. And out of the box, from the factory, even though it comes with quite a few filters, they're all actually turned off. And so turning them on and customizing it's really going to help. More and more cars these days are getting those blind spot monitoring systems, and because that's happening, Valentine now, as of very recently, has started actually turning some of the filters on some of the new V1s. And so what we're going to actually do is we're going to run through all the different options that you've got available at your disposal to deal with a variety of different false alerts. Some of the filters are going to negatively impact performance, so we're also going to be talking about balancing this with maximizing performance. However, there are some options that we've got to give you both, a quieter and a better performing detector. So we're going to talk about the exact ways of doing that, and I'm going to walk you through how to do it. Now, some of the things that I'm going to be talking about, they are features that are actually built into the V1, and we're going to walk through actually changing the settings and what they mean and what you should set them to. I'm going to be doing it by going through a phone here and changing through the menus here. For those of you guys who do not have a phone and you're going to be working with just the V1, I'm going to go ahead and put a video up on the screen. You can click on that or just click on the link in the video description and it'll give you a walkthrough of changing all the settings that are available in the V1 itself without using a phone. There are, as you can see, some different accessories. Like I've got a concealed display there. I've got a Bluetooth module, which then pairs to a phone, which is running an app. There's a variety of different accessories that you can get for the V1, which will really help improve things as well. For you guys who are curious about that, I'm going to go ahead and put another video up on the screen. Click on that, and that's going to get you familiar with a lot of the popular accessories such as Savvy, the iPhone and Android Bluetooth modules, and what your options are as far as pairing some accessories to it to really help quiet things down. The way I'm going to cover this is we're going to be talking about two different things. We're going to go over both what your muting options are, the V1 muting options, plus some of the accessories it can add on, as well as different ways that you can help improve the performance. So we're going to cover muting first, and then we're going to cover performance second. With that said, let's go ahead and just jump right in. The first thing, well actually, let's go over first of all so you guys know what we're going to be covering. Here's what we're going to cover first in the quieting down section. We're going to be talking about quieting down X-band by turning it off. We're going to be talking about potentially turning off K-band, when and why you may want to do that. We're going to be talking about the settings built into the V1 to help filter K-band if you still have it turned on. We're going to be talking about some features such as the new Junk K Fighter, their traffic monitor filter, which also does a great job at filtering out false alerts. We're going to be talking about some features that are not necessarily designed for filtering out false alerts, but actually are beneficial, such as turning off K-band pop detection. We're going to be talking about GPS lockouts, which is available through the Android phones. We're going to be talking about Savvy, as well as Savvy emulation through your phone. We're going to be talking about the logic and advanced logic filtering modes that are available and built into the V1. And then we're also going to be talking about the possibility of turning off laser detection for reduced false alerts and why you may or may not want to do that. In terms of improving performance, we're going to be talking about turning off KA guard. And we're also going to be talking about pushing some custom sweeps to really help open up the V1 and improve performance there, and how that impacts both performance and false alerts. Finally, we're going to finish things off with talking about some of your options for muting, advanced muting options with boxes for muting some of the Cobra Falses that you get by turning off KA guard that custom sweeps is not necessarily going to handle. So we'll get into all of that and more, and I'm going to go ahead and explain, not in crazy detail, but I am going to give you a background as far as what all the different features do, what the pros and cons are, and depending on your preferences and where you drive, if you want to maybe go one route or another route, if you want to enable this feature or not. We're going to cover all of that here in this video so that you guys are comfortable with the V1, what the different options are, and then you can decide what you feel is best for you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to cover is turning off X-band. So you can do this through the detector. Again, see my video on manually programming the V1 if you want to see that. You can also do it through a phone app. Both iPhone and Android will give you this ability. You can see right now I've got X-band unchecked, so it's actually turned off. X-band is actually not in use in the majority of the country, and so in most places you can actually run with X-band turned off and it'll help deal with quite a few false alerts. That said, there are still some places, such as Ohio and New Jersey and a few other areas, where X-band is still in use. And for you guys there, you obviously still want to run with X-band turned on, and you'll want to rely on some of the other filtering options that are available. For those of you guys who are curious, I'm going to put another video up on the screen. You can click on that, and that's going to give you information on where to go to actually find out which bands are in use in your area based on what other people have found and shared and just collectively pooled together. You'll find information on where X-band is in use, K-band, different KA bands, even what laser guns are in use in different areas. So go on that, go visit the RDFGS, and you'll see all that information in that other video. With K-band, K-band is going to be a little bit different. You could turn off K-band because you're going to get a lot of false alerts on K-band. However, K-band is still in use almost everywhere in the country, and so you're definitely typically going to want to have K-band turned on and rely on some of the filtering options that we're going to be covering here to help quiet things down and deal with some of the false alerts. You'll see the K-band is actually grayed out here. I can't actually turn it off. And the reason why is because the V1 actually makes it really, really easy to turn K-band on and off on the fly. The way it works is you'll see how I have a C right up here on the screen. It's a big capital C. If I press and hold this button, it'll actually change it to a little c. When I have it in little c, K-band is actually turned off. If I press and hold it again, whoops, my finger out of the way, it goes back to a big C, which means K-band is turned on. So it's a really, really easy way while you're driving to just go ahead and turn K-band on and off. There are some places, such as some areas in California, not everywhere, not the whole state, where it's only KA band and laser. And if that's the case, you could turn off K-band entirely, and it'll really, really help deal with some false alerts. I drive in an area where K-band is still in use, but there are still some times where I will turn off K-band. Give you an example is if I'm not necessarily driving really fast, I'm driving around town where there's going to be a ton of false alerts and maybe I got somebody else in the car and all the beeps and blinks would be annoying them, I'll just turn K-band off and it really helps quiet things down. I know just through my own experience, I know some parts, downtown, they don't run any speed enforcement, so I don't really care about, radar detection too much there. And I also know that around town on the highway, it's all KA and laser here, and I'm not worried about K-band. They run it here more out in the mountains and stuff, and so in those areas, I'll turn it back on. Or just in general, I do run with K-band on and let all the filtering stuff, which we're going to be covering next, take care of it. So unless you know for a fact that K-band is not in use, I really would recommend running with it turned on. That's really the best way to go. And again, we're going to be covering a whole bunch of different filtering options to really help dial things down on K-band. So typically, leave K-band on and let's get into some of the filtering options. Now, built into the V1, we do have a variety of different K-band muting options you can see. Again, this is built into the V1, and so you can do it through the detector, or you can do it here through a phone. You can see the option here for muting logic. If we turn it off, it all goes away. If we turn on muting logic, we now have the option for all these things. Basically what you're looking at, the time period is going to say any signals that are going to be 3 seconds or longer, I want you to go ahead and start alerting, but up to the 3-second mark, I want you to go ahead and keep the signals muted for me. When I say muted, I mean, let's do this, we'll go back and connect. Muted basically says it's going to visually alert, but it's going to audibly mute the signal. So you'll still get the signal there, like that. And you can, so on the screen you'll always see it, and you can hide it there if you want or not. But so that's going to be muted. It'll basically, I have some other feature that's muting it in addition to what I'm showing you right now, which we'll get into in just a second. So let's see, where are we? V1 settings. In here. Cool. Okay. So K-band muting. We could say, so mute signals initially, and then if they last longer than 3 seconds, I want you to go ahead and unmute them. Additionally, I could say no muting above 3 on first, which means if I initially get a strong signal, if it's more than 3 dots out of 8, we'll go ahead and trigger this guy again. You'll see on the screen there's actually 8 dots on the strength meter at the bottom. If the initial detection is going to be 4 dots or stronger, I want you to go ahead and alert and not initially mute the signal. So if you get shot essentially with instant on, it's not going to mute it initially. If it starts with a really quiet signal and gradually builds up, that's going to be a different scenario. In that situation, you can see we've got mute off above 5 dots, which basically says if the signal gets to 6 dots or stronger, at that point, I want you to go ahead and then begin alerting. And so if it's a strong signal, hey, I really want you to get my attention, and unmute the V1. So that's that feature right there. And then finally, the bottom option, you can see mute rear K-band. We're going to say if the radar is coming from behind, go ahead and mute it. Radar is typically more of a threat in front of you as you're driving towards it. You can still get, of course, clocked from behind, but if you want to help kind of cut things down in terms of noisiness, you can also mute any signals coming from behind. So that's a really useful feature there. And those are some muting options that are available in the V1. There's also another filter which they have available, which is called the traffic monitor filter. Initially, this was designed to filter out radar devices that are on the sides of highways that basically just transmit radar and see, cars that are driving by. And they're used, if you look on, maps, how they'll show like how much traffic is in the area. In some places, that's based on radar. And what you can do is enable a feature that'll actually filter out those blasts of radar so that your detector isn't constantly false alerting to those traffic monitor systems. If you want, you can enable that feature and it'll go ahead and filter them out. Now, this feature, it turns out, the way that it works is it basically just mutes any signals that are half a second long or less. And so if a signal is longer than half a second, at that point, it'll then punch through the filter and begin alerting. And so you're basically going to be missing any sort of brief duration alerts. You must be filtering them out. Turns out that one of the side benefits to this is it actually did a pretty good job at filtering out a lot of blind spot monitoring systems from cars. And it turned out to, be really useful for that. Because of that, they have since improved it, and they've come out with a second version of TMF called TMF2, which then for marketing reasons, they renamed to their Junk K-Fighter. So if you look on Valentine's site and you see the Junk K-Fighter advertised, that's this feature right here. It's TMF2. It's now actually shipping turned on by default. Historically, all these features were turned off, and the V1 was really, really chatty out of the box. But then they started giving people this feature as of version 3.894, and people were saying, what the heck, I just upgraded my V1 and it's still really noisy. And they're like, okay. So what they did is they went ahead and turned this feature on by default, and they called that version 3.894.5. So that's currently, as of the time of this video, the latest and greatest version. And their implementation of TMF2, it's actually one of the best blind spot monitoring systems. It's available on any detector. Interestingly, it actually works better than the version of this filter. Escort calls it TSR, traffic sensor rejection. It actually works better than Escort and Beltronic's implementation while having less of a negative detrimental impact on performance, which is really interesting. I'm not sure entirely how they did that. The delay is less, and yet it works better. I don't really get it, but long story short, with TMF2 enabled and some of the other filters that we're going to be talking about here next, it's going to turn the V1 from one of the noisiest, chattiest detectors on the market to actually one of the quietest detectors on the market. It's pretty amazing. And so it's going to make a huge difference. It's just one end of the spectrum to the other, like really, really big difference. And this is one of the features that's going to help you get there, is the traffic monitor filter, or TMF. Now, there's also a feature here you can see for K-pop. And this is going to be for K-band pop detection. And basically what it's going to do is when you enable it, it's going to make the V1 more reactive to brief bursts of K-band pop radar. Now, K-band pop is not used here in the States. It is used overseas, and so here in the States, you can actually turn it off. It will slightly slow down K-band detection, but not really in much of an appreciable amount. It's still going to do an excellent job with that feature turned on and off. Now, what I would suggest is, especially if you live here in the States, turn K-band pop off. What that's going to do for you is it's going to slow it down a little bit, not too much to where it actually, impacts your ability to detect quick trigger or negatively impact range, but it is going to slow it down just enough to where it can actually filter out some cars with blind spot monitoring systems without the degree of performance penalty that you'll get with running TMF or TMF2. So you're looking much, much less of a performance penalty. So really great there. I would definitely recommend this feature in general. Really great. K-pop off. So good feature there. For those of you guys who drive around primarily in cities, especially if K-band is really not in use much, that's my situation. In those situations, I would definitely recommend turning TMF2 on. It does a fantastic job. If you have an older V1, you may want to look into actually upgrading because it does such a great job at filtering those systems out. To get this new feature here. If you're driving around primarily, let's say, in the mountains or outside of major cities or areas where you don't have a lot of cars that are going to be, falsing your V1 all the time, I would recommend turning this feature off. This is what I do when I'm driving around, maybe, like I said, in the mountains, in the forest, and I want maximum performance on K-band. I'll go ahead and turn TMF2 off. And to make it easy, you'll see I actually have a couple different profiles loaded here for myself. I can just immediately, with the press of a button, go from TMF2 on to TMF2 off. Makes it really, really simple for me. And same thing with turning X-band on and off. You can see I've got 2 profiles for X-band on and off, TMF2 on and off, and then also 2 more profiles for, not running X-band. So it's all right there for you. Makes it really, really great. And easy to do. It's a lot safer than having to, dig through menus and do all this crazy stuff while you're driving. You just got profiles, push it in, done. So really, really love that feature. So that's TMF2. Now, the V1 also has the ability to give you GPS lockouts. This originally came out, Escort and Beltronics did a great job of this. They brought it out. Now it's also available for the V1. In order to get this, this is an Android option only. This is not available on iOS. And this is not built into the V1, and so you can't actually do it without an Android phone. So you are going to need the Android Bluetooth module, and you're going to need an Android phone. The way it works is we're going to go into our settings, and we're going to go take a look at Lockouts. Now, you can see right here I have it enabled, and basically what Lockouts are going to do is as you drive around, your phone is going to automatically learn any sort of stationary radar falses that are always there in the same location and the same frequency every time. And it's going to automatically learn those and begin muting and locking them out for you. And so every time then, after a little while, you pass by the same speed sign, the same drugstore, the same grocery store. If they cause your detector to alert, same shopping center, it's going to automatically learn those signals and lock them out for you. So that is an incredibly useful feature. All the detectors that I've been using for the past few years have this feature, and I've kind of taken it for granted. Running some of the other detectors recently for testing that don't have this feature, I'm like, oh my gosh, it is such a big deal. This is one of the killer features that you've got here with Yavi One, and so this is one of the primary reasons. There's other ones too, but this is one of the primary reasons why I would definitely recommend, if you run a V1, grab yourself an Android phone and the Bluetooth module, pair it with this free app here, Yavi One, and it really, really helps complete the package. I'm running here just a prepaid phone. I don't have to pay for minutes or data or anything. It's basically just Bluetooth on to connect to the V1 and then GPS to know where I am. So really simple. Anyways, turn on Lockouts, and you're really going to dial back your false alerts for stationary K-band falses, and as well as X-band if you have it turned on. TMF, which we talked about last, is going to help with the moving blind spot falses, some cars that come and go, they're not always there. This is going to be specifically for signals that are always in the same location as stationary sources of false alerts. You do also have the option of enabling KA lockouts if you have maybe some KA band speed signs in the area. You can actually lock those out. By default, it only does it manually because you definitely don't want it going around and inadvertently locking out KA band, because it's almost always going to be legitimate. So definitely an expert setting there. Don't turn it on by default unless you really, really know what you're doing. But yeah, doing this here, you can just turn on your lockouts, and yeah, it's just going to do a really great job of really helping quiet down the V1. Cool. So in addition to that, there is another feature that's available, and that's going to be Savvy. Now, Savvy, it's going to be an accessory available that you can purchase from Valentine. It costs $70. And it's a device that plugs into your vehicle's OBD2 port, which will then read how fast you're driving, and you set a little dial to say, if I'm driving under a preset speed, I want you to go ahead and mute my V1 for me and keep things really quiet. So it's a great way of when you're driving around town at slow speeds, just to help really quiet things down. Really, really useful feature here. Again, it does cost about $70. If you pair your V1 with the phone, you can actually use your phone's GPS to do effectively the same thing. You can see right there on the screen, I've got Savvy emulation enabled, and it says basically, as long as I'm traveling under 35 miles an hour, I want you to go ahead and mute my V1 for me. And you can adjust, of course, what your limits are there. just to help quiet things down. And by default, I think it's only like X and K band. You can also say, you know, also do KA band and laser if you want, or exclude those from Savvy. So I've got it set up here. I want to know definitely if KA band is used in the area. Even if I'm at low speeds, I want it to get my attention, and so I have that box checked. So really nice feature there. This feature is also available on iOS. To get that, you're going to want to get the app Stealth Assist. It's free to download, $10 to purchase after the free trial. And basically, same idea. You're going to set a certain speed here with the dial, the little switch, and say, okay, let's say I want, same idea, 35 miles an hour, whatever speed you want. It's going to use your phone's GPS to automatically mute your V1 when you're traveling below a speed. So really, really useful feature there. Again, $10 for Stealth Assist. Yavi One here on Android is free. Savvy to plug into your car is $70. So those are your options for muting based on speed with the V1. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the V1's built-in logic and advanced logic modes. To do that, go ahead and V1, turn off custom sweeps, and you're going to see the V1 then switches to A mode. Perfect. And so now the way this is going to work here, you'll see the V1 actually says A. If I, will it focus? Hopefully it will. That'd be great. Focus. Not so much? Okay. Anyways, so what we're going to want to do here, oh, cool. We're going to press and hold the button here. And you'll notice it'll switch now to little L. So now we're in logic mode. We can again press and hold the button, and we'll switch to advanced logic mode. And then if we press it a third time, we're going to switch to all bogeys mode. And what this is going to do, all bogeys is going to go ahead and alert to all signals. Logic mode, based on some of those filtering options that we set, like, you know, no, not alerting above 3 dots and 5 dots, remember all that stuff? We can say in logic mode, if you deem that it's potentially a false alert, I want you to go ahead and mute for me any falses that you think they're falses. I want you to still display them on the screen, but audibly, I want you to go ahead and mute them. Advanced logic is a little bit different. It says, if you think this is a false alert, don't tell me at all. I want no visual indication. I want no audio alarm. Just stay quiet. As such, it's the most quiet setting, but it's also the most dangerous because you do have the possibility of missing what could be a legitimate alert. Like perhaps, let's say, a quick trigger alert, or just you know, a weak alert at a distance. Not even with QT. It could just be a weak signal, and you're clocking, you know, you're picking up somebody who's way up ahead of you. In that situation, this filter could potentially miss it. So as such, it's the most dangerous one. A mode is going to give you the most alerting at the expense of being the noisiest. So, you know, find the sweet spot there. You'll notice I had to actually exit my custom sweeps in order to get that. This feature is not actually available if you've got sweeps loaded into the detector. And as such, I really haven't bothered with the logic or advanced logic modes too much. I focus on the sweeps because there's so many other benefits, and I let these other things like the lockouts and that weren't available a while ago, I let these other features take care of it instead. So let's go ahead and talk now about laser detection. The V1, it's actually phenomenal at laser detection. It has one of the best laser detectors that you can get in any radar detector. It does a fantastic job at picking up laser. However, it also does false quite a bit. Because of its sensitivity and its very minimal filtering on laser, you'll get quite a few false alerts. In fact, I'll go ahead and put a video up on the screen that'll show you, one day I went for a drive and I got 8 false alerts on laser and no actually legitimate detections. It likes to false to Mazdas, to Infinitis, to Volvos. They're like laser collision avoidance systems, and so as such, you'll get quite a few false alerts. The Redline, for example, also has a really great laser detector, but has a little bit more filtering, so it's not going to false as much. The V1 with its minimal filtering will give you more false alerts. What I do in my situation is, because I run a set of ALPs, the anti-laser priorities, I just let my jammers take care of all the laser work, and I don't really bother anymore with the V1. The ALPs actually have better filtering, so you get reduced falsing, and they'll actually jam laser, where the V1 will only detect it. Some people may argue that, hey, you should leave laser on because you've got the possibility of catching scatter, and yeah, that's very true. You do have that possibility. Scatter, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with it, laser is designed to be like a pinpoint dot of laser just a bit. It does kind of spread and widen over a distance, but the whole idea is you can target one car while not alerting everybody else in the area. Radar just kind of blasts and spews into the area, so anybody with a radar detector their detector will go off before they get shot. Laser, generally not the case. However, sometimes the laser beam may, let's say, go through the windshield and through the car and, alert a car back behind that's not actually being targeted. Or let's say it bounces off the side of the car and ricochets and it alerts another car. So you do get some scatter detection. If you have a very sensitive laser detector, such as the V1, you could actually pick it up and potentially pick up laser before you're actually being clocked. The thing is, scatter detection is very, very rare. Do not count on it by any means to save you from laser. Heck, I mean, even if you've got a laser detector in your radar detector like this, if your detector even goes off, and in many situations it won't go off anyways because, they're shooting your lights or your license plate in your radar detector, it's just too far away to see a very tiny thin beam. There's many situations where your detector won't even go off when you're being clocked by lasers. So, look into jammers, that kind of thing. If you're curious about that, watch my video on what's the best laser jammer. So again, same thing. I'll put a video on the screen, click on that, or a video description. But basically, the idea is, yes, you can pick up laser scatter, but it's extremely rare. I've seen people kind of assume a lot of times, oh, I don't think I got shot, so it must be scatter. But the thing is, unless you can confirm for sure, it's extremely rare to pick it up, and you'll get quite a few falses in my experience. So I personally prefer letting my jammers do it. If you don't have jammers, it might be a good idea. Leave laser on, and you just accept that you're going to be getting some falses. But otherwise, yeah, the V1 does a phenomenal job at detecting laser. So, cool. Next, let's go ahead and jump into improving performance rather than just purely quieting the thing down. And to start us off, we're going to be talking about improving performance, well, all the way around, but we're going to go ahead and address Ka band. You notice we've been talking laser and X and K band. We're going to go ahead and get into Ka band next. To start us off, we've got, go into the V1 settings, one option here for Ka guard. What is Ka guard? Well, radar detectors are designed to detect radar. They also inadvertently emit radar signals, and as such, they can be detected by radar detector detectors. There are some radar detectors which have minimal emissions or even some additional stealth technology to help them be immune to being detected by radar detector detectors, such as the Escort Redline, the Escort 9500 CI, the Beltronics STIR Plus. There are a couple detectors that are immune, but nonetheless, some of the really poorly designed radar detectors, they will emit radar on frequencies that's the same as police radar. So what happens is your radar detector will actually false alert to police radar because of another radar detector in the area. Some of the better detectors have designed it so even though they do emit, they do so in a way it's on a totally different frequency, so it's not going to cause other detectors to false alert. It kind of plays better with others, right? So, unfortunately, you do have some detectors like Cobras, which are notorious for causing false Ka band alerts on radar detectors. And as such, there is a filter that's available called Ka guard, which is going to filter out those signals. The way that it works in short is when it detects a potential Ka signal, what it's going to do is it's going to, before it alerts, it's going to do an additional scan to see, is this a radar detector or is it a police radar gun? Without getting into technical details about harmonics and stuff, there are some additional signals that are present when a radar detector is falsing versus when a police radar gun is shooting, and as such, it can detect the difference between a radar detector and a police radar gun. In short, doing so, it's going to negatively impact performance. It's going to slow things down because it has to do these additional scans. And it's also going to reduce long distance range. And so if you're willing to turn off Ka guard, you are going to get better performance. It's going to be faster, it's going to be more reactive, and it's going to give you maximum range. However, you are going to be getting additional false alerts. Because of that, we're going to go ahead and cover now dealing with Ka band false alerts here in the next section, as well as additionally covering more performance improvements. Now, in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and have to go into Euro mode and then push some custom sweeps. So you'll see back to C. So you'll notice now that I've got my custom sweeps loaded up. And if you're curious about how to do this, I'll put a video up on the screen teaching you how to, like, you know, do all this kind of stuff. You've got some profiles loaded up, so you don't have to do all this. You can just push a button and do all this stuff automatically. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is, now that we've got our new settings loaded up, something like this, you'll see we have no options here for KA guard. It's actually turned off once we've got our custom sweeps loaded up. We've got all this. So now that we've actually, what we're looking at here, the reason it went away is we've got Euro mode enabled. That was a thing, which makes that go to the letter U. And then once we push our custom sweeps, it makes it go to the letter C. So we'll take a look at our custom sweeps. I got a couple different options here. And what I've got loaded currently, I've got sweeps specifically for 33.8, 34.7, and 35.5. What this is going to do is we're basically going to say, well, on KA band, it's a really, really wide range of frequencies, and having to scan through the entire range of frequencies does take time, and it just takes a while, right? So it's a slow process. The thing is, legitimate police radar is not going to be everywhere within the entirety of KA band. It's only in just a couple areas, and specifically 33.8, 34.7, and 35.5. So what you can do is you can say, hey, V1, don't bother scanning everything. I want you to scan only the areas where there's going to be legitimate police radar, and don't waste your time scanning areas where there's not. This is going to significantly improve performance. Not having to spend all this extra time scanning unnecessary areas means your detector is more reactive. It's faster. It means you have less likelihood of missing a very brief signal because you're not wasting time scanning elsewhere when that brief signal is present. You're also going to get better range with running custom sweeps and running KA guard. Now, another really cool side benefit is, remember how I mentioned KA guard is going to give you additional false alerts on KA band because you turn that filter off? Well, what you could do is, by enabling custom sweeps, what you can actually say is, there's some frequencies where there's going to be only police radar. There's other frequencies where there's going to be only false alerts. Aha! If I'm not bothering scanning those frequencies where there's going to be only false alerts, not only am I getting the improvements in performance with custom sweeps, but I'm also not going to be getting false alerts because I'm turning off those frequencies entirely and not having them show up. So there you go. Here is a really great way of, quote-unquote, filtering out a lot of the false alerts without actually having to do all that filtering. You're going to get the best of both worlds of improved performance and reduced false alerts. So excellent. If you look at the way I've got it set up here on the screen, it does look a little bit weird. It's like, well, you're scanning for 33.8, but you don't have a 33.8 sweep. And instead, you've got two 34.7 sweeps and one 35.5. Yeah, it does look a little bit weird. Basically, there's kind of some weirdness with the way the V1 is designed, where it automatically, no matter what, always scans 33.8. You cannot turn off 33.8 detection. And so it's automatically built in, and you don't have to bother actually creating a sweep for 33.8. 34.7 is also a little bit weird. You can see we're going to be scanning 34.7 plus minus 100 megahertz. So 34.593 to 34.833. I do go a little bit wider because I like to cover potentially out-of-tune guns. You can go higher on 34.7, but if you start going to 34.850 or so, I do notice some false alerts in that area, so I back down just before the false alert starts, but still covering out-of-tune guns. So that's where I like to run it right here. There's also some weird thing going on where you have to actually break up your 34.7 sweep into 34.770 and then a new sweep at 34.774. Again, not going into the reasons why, but that is there. 35.5 is the only kind of regular normal one, and you'll see we're basically scanning 35.5 plus minus 100 megahertz, going a little bit wider. So 35.394 to 35.615. And you can manually punch this in, or you can just load the presets that are built into Yavi One and do this for you. If you're running an iPhone, you can also load in your custom sweeps using the Valentine app, and you'll just punch these numbers in yourself. So if you're curious, do a little bit of research on custom sweeps. I'll post a link to where you can go see where people are posting their different sweeps that they're doing. But basically, long story short with sweeps, just turn on the frequencies that you need, turn off the ones that you don't. You're going to get full-on performance. You're going to get excellent performance. You're going to get reduced false alerts. Now, there is one caveat with this, and that is the 33.8 range. Remember how I mentioned you can't turn off that frequency range? Well, a lot of Cobras do tend to false around the 33.6, 33.7, 33.8 range. And the thing is, you cannot turn those frequencies off, even by using custom sweeps. And so what's going to happen is if you turn off KA guard, you will still get some Cobra Falses in the 33.6, 33.7, 33.8 range. So let's talk about a solution you can have to working with that. This is not going to be a total perfect solution, but it's one thing that you can do. And we're going to be using frequency boxes to take care of it. So I've got frequency boxes enabled here, and we're going to go down to the Ka band section. So you're going to see I've got a couple boxes set up here. I've got a box for 33.8, 34.7, and 35.5. Let's go take a look at our 33.8 box. We're basically saying we're going to create a box, a frequency range between 33.7 to 33.9. This is independent of custom sweeps. Whether you're running custom sweeps or not, boxes are a different feature. Okay. So what we're doing is, in my case, I say, well, I've got a box, I want it to be a special color, and I put in a little sound. So if I get a signal in this range, I want it to play this audio file.
33.8.
So as I'm driving around, pretty cool, I like this little thing. It'll tell me what, what frequency, 34.7, 35.5, whatever. Not really within the scope of this video, but just something I'm doing. What I do want to show you is any signals that are below 33.7, such as 33.6-ish, it's going to be outside of that box. And the way I've got it set up now is with my muting alerts. For any Ka signals that are outside of the box, I want you to go ahead and mute it. And so if I get any Cobra Falses that are in the 33.6 range, while they still will visually display here because you can't actually turn off those ranges, you can actually program it here to actually say, go ahead and mute those signals so I don't get the audio alerts. So that's kind of a sort of band-aid to fixing the issue. Not a total solution, especially because Cobras can still false in the 33.7, 33.8 range. And so you will still get some falses, but it's kind of a partial solution to the issue. Another thing that you can do is if you're driving in an area where maybe, let's say it's only 34.7 and 35.5, for example, you could specifically create a box for the 33.8 region. So let's say for now, we'll just do 33.500 to 33.900. Awesome. So we're going to create a box for that range, and we'll say, okay, pretend these ones don't exist. So we just have that one box for 33.6 to 33.5 to 33.9. And then we'll go in here and we'll say any Ka signals, I want you to go ahead and mute any Ka signals inside the box. And so we're basically going to nuke the entire range there. Again, it will still visually display here, but it's going to mute your signals. And so that's a way where if you know for a fact that 33.8 is not in use, legitimate 33.8, you can go ahead and just audibly mute any signals that'll come in there, like especially the ones that come in from the Cobras. So that's a really useful feature there. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that off because it's not how I actually run it. But for those of you guys who want to run it that way, by all means, go right ahead. That's a great solution for dealing with some of the Cobra Falses. So cool, there you go. There's a way of actually muting and quieting down the V1. We took a look at some options of, turning off some bands, why you may or may not want to do that, as well as some of the filtering options that you've got, such as their junk K-Fighter with TMF, you've got K-Pop, you've got GPS lockouts, you've got Savvy, you've got a whole bunch of different ways of muting potential false alerts. And then you've also got some ways of improving performance, such as turning off KA guard and enabling custom sweeps. You're going to get actually pretty dramatic performance benefits by doing that. There was one test when this first came out, and the Red Line came out with band segmentation and RDR, which is their equivalent to custom sweeps and KA guard. And we found that range jumped dramatically. Like in this one test that we did, I'll put the results up on the screen. You can see that with the features turned off, we got in the 2,000-ish foot range, and then with the features enabled, we were in the 4,000 foot range in terms of detection distance, so almost double detection range, which was pretty phenomenal. Again, you shouldn't expect that this one particular test is going to hold true in all cases. It really, really is dependent upon, your driving conditions and such. So you're not always going to see exactly, twice the range or whatever. But from what we've seen, you do get a very significant performance in terms of reaction time and long distance range by disabling KA guard and enabling custom sweep. So I definitely recommend doing that. Again, you can do it yourself manually, or watch one of my videos if you choose to go with Yavi One on how to enable these features using the presets. And video on the screen and video description is available. So cool, there you go. I hope that's been helpful. This is really designed to be one of those videos for people who say, the V1 is so noisy, it false alerts all the time, and I can't use it, it's unusable, that kind of stuff. And just kind of, you know what, that's totally true, especially out of the box. As you can see, we've got a ton of options. Not all of these options were actually available a couple of years ago. Like, you know, we've got GPS lockouts available now. We've got an improved version of TMF, which now does a great job against blind spot falses. And so with these features enabled, you're going to be looking at the difference between one of the noisiest detectors on the market to one of the quietest detectors on the market. It makes a huge, huge difference. My recommended, setup would be the V1, as well as an Android module and an Android phone. Again, like I said, I got a prepaid phone, 45 bucks, whatever, and it works great. I would definitely recommend this over the iPhone version, even for those of you guys who, like me, actually are iPhone users. It really is, worth your while. Get an Android phone, and if you're cool with, pairing a phone to your detector, this is a really great option to really, really help quiet things down. So, there are some options like the Max 2, which have a more integrated package, which can do a lot of this kind of stuff built in. It doesn't work as well. The V1, if you customize it like this, is actually going to give you reduced false, like even fewer false alerts and very similar range, if not sometimes a little bit better. And you get a lot more control and customization by doing it this way. So yeah, there you go. There's a look at customizing and tweaking and really maximizing the capability as far as what we've got here in the V1. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comment area below. I'm going to go ahead and leave links down in the video descriptions to all the different videos that I've been referencing throughout this video so that you can go take a look for more information on the different accessories that I'm talking about, on how to program this kind of stuff, on maybe how to automate it. So instead of manually changing all these settings, you can just have it, configure all this stuff for you. So yeah, with all that, just go take a look. Cool. I guess that's about all I've got for now. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already and you want to keep, staying updated for all this kind of stuff. And until next time, I will catch you guys later. Bye-bye.